So I've had my Logitech C920 webcam for about 4 years now, and to be honest, I always thought it was trash. I used to use it daily for conference calls, and I always looked terrible. My images were overexposed, it was grainy, it just looked like the bottom of the barrel, and I could not wrap my head around what was going on. The packaging and everything that Logitech told me was that the webcam was 1080p, but I've had 1080p DSLRs and other cameras, and I always had such better images from those cameras. It wasn't until today when I stumbled across the Logitech G HUB app. Prior to that, I tried the Logitech Capture app, and I always had trouble with it, and it crashed my Mac. But today, for some reason, I decided to swing back and download the G HUB app, and I was able to fine tune my video. This webcam is not dead for me. I recognize that this quality isn't exactly up to 2025 standard. However, I think there are some practical applications where this webcam can still really pull some weight, like a B cam, or in the case of gaming where your screen is primarily devoted to the game and not necessarily your face. This webcam now goes for about $65 on Amazon, which I think is a great deal still. If you don't need a full screen and you don't need 4K and you just want your images to not look washed out, I think this is a great budget option, especially considering how popular this webcam was, and most people already have this camera laying around. In fact, according to Logitech, the C920 is one of the most popular webcams ever. During lockdown, the C920 was sold out for months due to demand. This was really to help facilitate all of the conference calls and all of the work from home that everyone had been thrusted into. Also, most Twitch streamers actually started on this camera, according to Reddit. I'm super excited about it, and I just wanted to share what I learned today and some of the settings that I was able to dial in to get today's look. So if you have a C920 laying around, let me show you how to make it look like a DSLR on a budget. To get started, head over to the Logitech website and go to the G HUB page. The software is available for Windows and Mac OS. I'm currently on macOS. I have already downloaded the software. We're now in the Logitech G HUB application, and when you first boot up, it's gonna look for all of the devices that are connected. As you can see here, it has located my C920. I will click into that. Right now, it's still picking up my image that I've fine-tuned, so I'm gonna turn this off and you're gonna see how dramatic this changes. My crop, I have default. Where I've made my big changes is in exposure and the image. Those are where you're gonna get the most bang for your buck. Currently, I have a preset, but I'm gonna show you what this looks like. This is the auto exposure. As you can see, it's really changed the way that the image looks, and it's completely trash again. The other key is the image. I also have changed the white balance as well as other settings here. So I'm going to go back to my default, and you can see it even got worse. Now you can see where we started, and now everything's on auto white balance. It's on auto exposure, and the application also has a low light compensation, which makes it even worse. With that being said, so we're going to walk through the changes that will take this to the next level. First, you want to start with your exposure. So we definitely want to turn off auto exposure. And now all of a sudden, this is much better already. We are shooting at 30 frames per second. And so our shutter speed is perfect at 1/60. I'm going to leave that as it is. Where we're going to focus our attention is the ISO. The higher the number, the more noisy the image becomes, and also you'll notice there's going to be a lot more light. So right now we're at 100. I'm going to just crank it up just so you can see how it's changing the image. If I had to guess, the auto exposure on the C920 is defaulting way up here. I like around 200 ISO. That's where I shot the rest of this video. So I'm going to set that to 200. Now, it's also a great idea to create a new preset so that way you can remember what you set this to, and if something happens or you need to reboot, you can always get right back to where you were. So I'm going to just set this to ISO 200. Next, we're going to look at the image. We are going to turn off white balance. Now notice that automatically gave me the ability to adjust my color temperatures, which is fantastic. We also have the ability to adjust brightness, contrast, saturation, and sharpness. Now I'm in a room full of relatively warm lights, and so I'm going to pull down my temperature slightly. I already have a preset here where I have my temperature already set around 3500. I have my brightness at 50%, my contrast at 55%. That's gonna just give us a little bit more around the edges. I've cranked up my saturation just a tad bit so that I can have a little bit more natural skin tone. And then sharpness, I have it at 55%. I wouldn't recommend going over 60%. Once you go over 60%, it really starts to look very grainy. I landed at around 55%. You can crank that down depending on the image quality that you're getting and also the lights that you have in your room. That's going to be the most critical part of this. Your results will depend on the lighting that you have. I happen to have a key light here, which is set around 50%. I also have a fill light here to my right side, which you can see that's lighting the side of my face. I also have some lights in the back that are lighting up the room. It's really going to depend on the lighting that you have in your environment, but generally speaking, you'll want to play around with these settings until you find something that looks relatively good. I would recommend starting with these thresholds here and then just playing around with it just a bit depending on your environment. If you have more blue lights, right, you'll have to compensate with your temperature. If you have really strong warm lights, you'll have to compensate for that as well in your temperature. These are not a one size fits all. This is really based on your environment. But what's really great about the G HUB is that you now have the capability to fine tune your image. I'm going to leave everything else. I like my preset. So as you can see, that's a huge difference from where we started. And if I just flip back just to show you, because again, huge difference. Our defaults are insane. So defaults, these are our custom settings. And again, you can kind of fine tune this based on your environment. I think I'm going to land somewhere in here. So exposure and the image is really where you're going to get the most bang for your buck here. Now, the really great part about this is that I also use OBS Studio to record all of my videos, and these settings actually carry over to OBS, which is fantastic because I can also color correct in OBS. I can add other filters on the video just to really get my look dialed all the way in. I tend to not like to do too much because I just don't want to impact the image quality. It's already not, 4K and it's not the best 1080, but it is much better than what we were getting out of the box. So I'm really satisfied with this. Because I record all of my videos in OBS Studio, I now can take my video image into OBS Studio and apply some additional effect filters to really tune in the look I want. The ones I really like to fine tune are the gamma and the contrast. So in this case, I'm going to just add color correction, and I'm just going to play with the gamma ever so slightly. I'm going to go about 3%. And then for my contrast, I'm going to go about 5 to 10%. So I'm going to just kind of see what that gives me there. Let me bump this up a little bit more so it's not so dark. Now, if I turn that off, you see, if I turn that off, it gets a little darker. Turn that on. It's kind of like a little bit of a halo effect around me, which I really like. Now, I can additionally add sharpening, which I don't tend to like because it can start to look a bit grainy. If your image is still looking a little blurry or not as crisp as you'd like it, You can go ahead and add a little sharpness. Like I said, a little goes a long way. I would not recommend doing more than 5%. I like to actually stay like between like 2 and 5, just enough where it can crisp up the edges. But for now, I'm going to turn that off because I just don't think I need it. I have everything dialed in now, and I'm going to go back to my original source. Okay, so this is the image now that I have reapplied all of the settings in the G HUB application, as well as a few adjustments in OBS Studio, which, as you can tell, it's a huge difference, right? Huge difference from where we came from. I did want to call out that during my fine tuning, I did encounter some instability with the image quality. I found that sometimes the image was more sharp and more crisp. I found that sometimes the Logitech C920 would flicker mid-image. I don't know exactly what is happening, but it will resolve itself. If you're looking to record with this camera, then it could be problematic and cause you to have to do retakes and more editing. The other issue that I encountered was that it seemed like my settings were being overridden by an auto setting of some sort. It seemed like despite turning off the auto exposure, it seemed like the camera was still applying some sort of auto exposure, and I can't figure out how to take it off. So I hope this helped you to breathe some new life into your Logitech C920. And if you're on a tight budget, I still think this is a great option, knowing that you can now fine tune it with the G HUB app. So if you're interested in picking this up, just for old time's sake, I have linked this camera down below in the description. If this video helped you bring your C920 back from the dead, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to support the channel.